Welcome to Healing Your Families. This is Emmylou Penrod, and I help you as a parent go from frustration, stress, and overwhelm to calm, confidence, and joy so you can achieve the quality of family life that you desire. This is the last in our series on confronting abuse. We've talked about how to recognize it, how to protect our families, and I love the most important part is healing. So last week we talked about healing the inner child, and today I have as a guest Susan Burdick. And Susan not only has a therapy that will help people heal, but she developed and discovered. She's the founder. So we are really honored. Susan, welcome.
Thank you. It's so nice to be here with all of you. And thank you, Emmylou, for inviting me. This ought to be a great conversation, and it's so beneficial to people for their lives. And this is what I've dedicated my life to also, is helping families, because I think families get confused sometimes with everything that's out there. And I think everybody should have something that is always available to them so they can help their own family.
Absolutely, absolutely. Now, I'm really intrigued with, so it sounds like in your pursuit of helping families, you tell me about that process. How did you learn?
Well, it actually started with a catastrophe, as most things do. And I was misdiagnosed. I was gluten intolerant, and I actually went through 3 stomach operations that were unnecessary. And on the last one, I had a 1 in 100 chance of even getting off the operating room table. I had 5 surgeons tell me that fact, and that 80% of the people who do get off the operating room table have serious problems the rest of your life. You can't live without a stomach. So I said a prayer, and it was probably the most conscious moment of my life. And I knew they started the drip, and I was starting to go out, and I knew I may never see my husband and children again. And as I got really groggy, I said a prayer, and I said, God, if you want me to die, accept that. I was very, very sick. And I said, if you want me to live, I'll help people the rest of my life. And then out I went under the medication. The crazy thing is, when I made this promise, I'll help people the rest of my life, I owned organic salon and spas. And I'm like, what am I going to do? Give somebody a great haircut? What do I have to offer? And I've been working with people with cancer, because I owned salons and spas, organic. And so I worked with a lot of women and children, women going through cancer treatments. And I worked a lot with children with the New Hampshire Dream Factory. I was on one of the founding, we actually picked out what the symbol was going to be and everything. And so I was sending kids on dreams for years. And that was really the start of my life. That was when everything kind of came together. I just followed this thread throughout my entire life, no matter what I was doing, and I was helping people. And I didn't realize where my path was going. But after having this near-death experience, 2 years later, I actually was living and studying natural health in North Carolina. And I came back to New England, and I had people say, oh, I want you to do this and that. I was a polarity educator. So that means doing like light touch, like Reiki on someone's skin on acupuncture points, instead of using needles, which is really super for kids because they just really respond. So one night I said to my client, who had a long laundry list of things wrong, I really, just with all my background, I just think I really need to do this on you tonight. And I'm going to take my conscious mind out of it, who's always trying to solve problems. And I'm just going to let my hands do what I feel you need. And it ended up being the most fantastic thing. She had cancer, and it regressed and then disappeared. And she just lost her brother to cancer. And so she was very, very traumatized. And so she released all of her traumas. And so we continued this process for a year and a half. And so every 3 weeks I worked on her, and it's actually, I'm writing a book. I'm almost finished. It's 12 years old, so it's about time. And so I documented everything. And so then I had a woman come in with right from Boston Children's Hospital with a 3-year-old. They diagnosed this child as low functioning autistic. And so she brought me in secretly. She wanted to see what I could do. And the first session, he had eye contact. The second session, he started to formulate words and he started to walk. He was unable to do all of this. By the 8th session, he was a completely healthy, functioning, normal child. They moved out of state, and the doctor said those doctors in your previous state misdiagnosed them. And that wasn't the case at all. It was this therapy. And so from then on in, that's why I wrote the workshop, is because I was like, if I can do this for one, I can do this for everyone. And I'm only one person. And the way my belief system is I don't feel we're here for ourselves. I feel we're here for everyone. It's like, what do we each have to offer someone, and what do we offer the world? And so that's why I wrote the workshop, because of that one child, which was really neat.
That is amazing. That is, I know that the human mind is very powerful, that we can, if you believe it, you can achieve it, and
Absolutely. What I found is, as I started working with people, this was over a decade ago, well, way before that when I was a polarity educator, but what I discovered was that a lot of the people that I worked with, it's what's happening in your mind. What is your thought process? It's if you're going through a trauma, if you keep thinking about that and reliving that same trauma, you'll be stuck in that same mode. So what my therapy does is it releases all of I'll explain it. So I'm doing light touch on your body. It sends information to a part of your brain called the somatosensory cortex in your limbic system. And so what happens is your body responds much faster to light touch than heavy touch. It's a safety mechanism. So it sends that information to your brain. Your brain decides what needs to happen and sends down the appropriate chemicals. Usually it's substance P, which is a neurotransmitter. I'm not going to go geek on you, don't worry. Even though I was a provider for education for nurses and I worked in a hospital, I get to talk to everyone all the time. So I have to make it so everybody can understand what I'm doing. And so what happens when this substance P goes into your body, it immediately releases all the connective tissue, fascia, and its matrix. So now you're getting more blood, more oxygen, more nutrients. Your cardiovascular system is working more efficiently. Your lymphatic system is detoxing you. Your cells are now getting fed because areas aren't all tight and impinged. And when you do it all over the entire body, fully dressed, the only thing I have people take off is their shoes so they can relax. You're sending all these chemicals are all coming down to help you. And then your whole body is communicating. What I do is I reconnect your brain and body function, like autism, for an example. I'm gluten intolerant. If I accidentally get some gluten, I will see everything around me and I know what's going on, but because I'm in an allergic reaction, I can't respond. So I realized that's what the children go through. And that's why this little guy, Bryce, at 3 years old, went from low functioning autistic to completely functional. The beauty of this system, and this is why it's so important for everyone to know how to do this, is because it releases trauma. Your connective tissue, fascia, and your matrix. The fascia actually is when you have a piece of chicken and you take the skin off, you're taking the flesh off, you see that little membrane. That little membrane is fascia, and it covers like here's a nerve ending, it just encases every nerve ending. Every nerve fiber, you have a nerve fiber, it's encased in, and then you put a bunch of fibers together and you get like a bicep or tricep. So all this fascia is a high-speed communication system. It stores and processes information. 95% of our day, it is not even conscious. We're not even conscious of what we're doing. And the first 7 years of our life is when we're an empty program. I'm looking at my computer and it'd be like just buying a new computer. There's no programs on it. And then for the first 7 years of your life, you're putting on different programs. And the programs you don't even have to be conscious of. You don't have to teach your children anything. They're looking at whatever is going on. And then that's what they're programming. So if you're in an abusive situation, a neglect, abuse, I have a million stories on how I've worked with very simple and very serious situations. What happens is, as this is all opening up, you're releasing this fascia. And so where it is a high-speed communication system, like I said, 95% of your day is subconscious. That's when we repeat all of these things. But it also stores and processes information. And that information is trauma. So by doing this, you're physically releasing the trauma out of their body. So I had someone whose dog bit them, and she said she could feel, as I was working on it, she could feel the dog biting her and yanking her arm. And she looked up around the room and said, the dog isn't here. And I said, no, whatever's going on in your body, you're making a chemical composition. Everything, every thought process, everything you do, it's a chemical composition. I can't even move my hands without a chemical composition happening. So what happens is when your body's opening up instead of tight, now you've released this area. So whatever was going on with your trauma, whether it was sexual assault, abuse, neglect, whatever your situation is, you're releasing this out of your cells. So your physical body is releasing the trauma. Physically, mentally, and emotionally, you're releasing it. Okay. I've had so many different situations like that.
Just a quick question, just to make sure I'm understanding. So I'm familiar with addressing the mind, the brain, to release trauma. And this sounds like you're doing essentially the same thing, but you're starting with the body. So when you release it in the body, it also, you said it communicates with the brain, right?
Yes.
So you're releasing it from, not from memory. I mean, they would still remember it, but they wouldn't have the pain. Is that accurate?
Exactly. Because we're, what we think, how we feel actually affects our body. So we can harm our body just with negative thoughts. Trauma, that repeating that.
Stress, yeah. Stress, worrying, needless.
Anxiety, it all, so what happens is, when I'm working, I'm releasing this, but you figure every single cell of your body is traumatized. So it isn't just my head is traumatized, my thought process. Yes, you have to reverse the thought process. I'm not a mental health therapist, but you have to reverse the thought process and get the neural pathways to fire on a positive note. And recreate the new neural pathways. So it's like, which one do you feed? You keep feeding the negative with negative thought processes, or you open new and make new neural pathways by positive things.
Now this is what I'm really familiar with. I understand how that works.
So what's happening is, as we're releasing all this trauma and these chemical compositions, it's physical, mental, and emotional all happening at the same time. I'm not a therapist. I don't, quite often people don't even tell me their story. They come into me for another situation, and then I find out about this horrific life that they had. And by releasing these traumas, all of a sudden the physical body feels better. They feel better. They usually have an emotional release. And so by having this emotional release, they're releasing the trauma, and then usually they speak about it.
Are they actually reliving the trauma? Or just sometimes they're reliving it
for a second.
As you're doing this process, applying that light touch, are you relying on your intuition to know how to do it? Is there?
I teach people to be intuitive, and that basically how to be. We're all intuitive, but basically what I teach people to do is be very present. So I play a lot of games with people. And so I just teach you to be very, very present. I used to play a game when I taught in colleges. I have lectured for like Autism One National Conference, and nurses. I've lectured to nurses and things. And I'd sit people in a circle and I would say, okay, I want you to touch this person's shoulder. And I'd have them all in a circle. And I just say, every other one, you're going to just touch this person's shoulder. But the person that's getting the touch, just sit there. You don't have to do a thing. And I said, the person who's touching, I want you to think of everything else but them. I've got to go make supper. I think I'm going to make spaghetti tonight. I think I should throw in the laundry, anything and everything but them. And then so I sit them there and I'm like, okay, you can feel this. And they're like, no, what am I supposed to feel? What's going on? I'm getting nothing. And I'm like, okay. So now this time, I want you to think how you love them, all the wonderful things they are. They're a great person. They're happy. They're always there for you. They support you. Anything beautiful that you can think of why you really care about this person. Now I want you to touch their shoulder. And people didn't even get their hands on the other person's shoulder. And they would flip and say, what was that? Because they could feel the love energy coming off this person's hand before they even touch them. And they would say, I was thinking of the time my car broke down and you're the only person who helped me. I was so grateful for you. And they would start saying all these wonderful things to this person. And it was the same no matter as we went around the circle. And so touch is huge. And your purpose, what is your intention for this person? That is huge, because you can walk in a room and if someone really loves you, you walk in the room, they don't have to smile or anything. You can feel their love and compassion. So what I want people to know is I've worked with like trafficking, child trafficking, and I'm not going to get into this horrible, horrible story, but it was probably the worst one I've ever heard. And this woman was so traumatized that you didn't think it was even possible she could even get through another day. And so I saw her off and on for a few years, and we kept releasing and releasing and releasing things. And she ended up being the most loving, joyful woman you could ever imagine. She appreciated everything. She was so happy. She sold a little old house she had and she got married. She bought this nice house with them. And it's like this happy forever after kind of story. But she went from like the worst situation that you could possibly imagine. And by releasing her trauma, and then I always bring in some positive things, like what's going to make you happy? What do you want to do? What do you love to do? Because whatever beast you feed is going to grow. So if you're going to feed the beast is going to keep you stuck. If you're going to feed what makes you happy, what's your joy, what's your love, just like when I was, when I said my prayer, I'll help people the rest of my life. That was my heart speaking. Yeah. Because I had absolutely no idea what I was going to do until I discovered this. And so your heart is a huge part of your life. And nobody can steal your heart, no matter what happens to you, whether it's an illness, whether it's abuse, whether it's neglect, whether it's you're living in poverty. I've seen people, this is so exciting. I've seen people who are struggling day to day, and they grew up in households where money was scarce and they barely had enough to eat. And they just, by encouraging someone and just being there, what happens is that these people have actually like completely flipped their entire life around. And like just a simple thing, what really makes you happy? What would you really love to do? And then by hearing that, they're like, I would really love to play the piano. Okay, there's ways to get you to in groups that you can play the piano. And I've watched people just blossom out and create careers and amazing lives after going through such difficult situations. It's really beautiful to watch.
So you're using your background in nursing. It sounds like you understand quite a bit about neuroscience and how the brain works and the neurotransmitters. and also how the body works, and then and I firmly totally with you on the mind and body connection. I really think we could make our lives much easier if we could work on this. I just, one quick observation I made is I used to have a lot of lower back pain. My back was just, it seemed like it was going out consistently until I learned to be a little more sensitive to signals from my body that told me I need to correct my posture, I need to make some changes. And so I'm a firm believer in that mind body connection. So
Yeah,
with you that background, then and your love, I can tell you have a lot of love in your heart. And love is the most powerful force in the
yes, it is.
universe,
Yeah.
especially unconditional love. And this is what I encourage parents. Your children need to feel your unconditional love. And so when you're using this light touch therapy, you are really loving them.
Mm. You can't. I have a very spiritual background, and I'm also very geek. And so my geek side allowed me to develop this and allowed me to take very complicated situations and say it very simply and teach someone very simply how to do it. Like arms and legs are done the same, hands and feet are done the same, all joints are done the same. And then I teach you exactly why we do what we do so that you can learn. Now, I have taught people with learning disabilities how to do this in my 2-day workshop. I have taught people who had so much anxiety, they had problems even being in the room. Every situation you possibly can imagine. My goal was, how can I help people? I mean, I'm an older person now, and so I don't want to take this with me. I put over a decade of time and invested into the development of this. And so my nursing background and teaching and all of that was the catalyst to allow me to develop this. But I made it so simple I could teach a 5th grader how to do it, because you don't need to know 901 acupuncture points, because I'm using the nervous system and acupuncture points. You don't have to know that. You just have to know a pattern. Just go up this side. Just do this. Just cross over here, and you're getting all the knowledge without the words, and without 2 years, 3 years education.
Okay.
And that was my goal.
Are you familiar with EFT or tapping? I'm seeing
Tapping.
some overlap.
Yeah, tapping actually is, you go side of the face,
Yeah.
they're on
Well,
the
they have
ends. Yeah,
specific.
there's acupuncture points, but then there's a whole meridian that runs up the body in different ways. And so tapping basically is using the end of an acupuncture line. What I'm doing is I'm using a lot of acupuncture points, and I'm using mostly your neurological system, because just on one foot, there's 7,200 nerve endings. So think of, it's going to every single part of your body. 1 foot, 7,200 nerve endings. So by using I'm using more nerve endings than I am acupuncture points. But it is so simple, and it's simple by design. So I literally, like I said, I have taught people that, struggle in school, have difficulties learning in school, and I can teach them how to do this.
So
And
this,
that was my whole goal.
okay, so this is a process parents could learn
Yes.
and use it to help their children.
Yes. Um, when I was a speaker at the Autism One National Conference, I was teaching a bunch of parents how to do this technique in the 2 days, and so that they can work on their children that have autism. So I've taught people, I've worked with every disease, disorder, and dysfunction, developmental issue, mental health issue, I can't even list everything that I've worked on. And I've worked across the United States, because I was part of the multi-state division, so I could teach anywhere in the United States. And so now I'm internationally because I'm online. But there is no use for something that is so complicated the average person can't use. So I'm a mom. I had a set of twins, and I know how crazy I was. My husband traveled all the time. I'd see him in like 8 months out of the year for 1 day a week. And so I was like, I did it all. And so I had to have something when they were boys. So they'd get hurt, they'd sprain ankles, dislocate their shoulder, get hit with baseballs. There's always so many things going on with kids. And so that's my life's mission is, I call it my divine calling, is because I know what I went through. My boys are 38 now, but I know it was just like one thing after the other. And I was mom by myself. My husband was like gone 8 months of the year. And so I had to like solve all these problems. And so now your child has a migraine, your child's having an anxiety attack, your child's just sprained their ankle, they have a really bad cut and you want it to heal faster, because over a decade, all my clients have come back, they've done different things, and then the doctor said it's going to take 6 to 8 weeks to heal. It's 2 weeks. It's a quarter of the time.
Physical and emotional healing.
Mm-hmm.
Now, tell us about the offer you have for our listeners. We just have a few minutes left. Tell us about how people can contact you.
As of July 14th, I do a healing group, as I said, because it gets, you can have your computer on and I can see you, or some people shut their computer off because they want to lay on the sofa and just chill out. I'm actually going to be doing like a distance session or a remote session on you, as I do from coast to coast and all over the world. And then so what I do is I talk to you a little bit, and then I put on some nice music. And then for the next hour and a half, you chill out, you lay on the sofa, you do whatever you want, and you just relax. So I am offering this group. July 14th is my next healing group. And it's 6:30 to 8:30 Eastern Standard Time. I'll repeat that. It's July 14th, 6:30 to 8:30 Eastern Standard Time. And what you do is I'll open this up. It's normally $195 to be part of this. And I'm going to open it up for free. I'm going to go onto my computer and take it off. So I'm going to remove the price on my computer so you can actually access it and sign in. It won't take any credit card information, but I do need your telephone number, your name, your email address. And it'll have you fill that out, and then it comes up, congratulations, this is of no expense, because I eliminated it off my paying portal.
That is a generous offer. Now, what is your website?
My website is Restore, RESTORE, FOR, life, LIFE.com. And so I'm going to open it up on the 12th. It's going to be opened for you to sign up quickly, because I do have to shut it down a little earlier so I can get all of the email, the Zoom, I've got to send you all the link.
So we go to restoreforlife.com, July 12th, sign up, and then we get to do this for free Thursday, the 14th, July 14th from 6:30 to 8:30 Eastern. This is just wonderful. Susan, that's very generous.
Well, this is my gift to people, because I know we're all in this together and we all need each other. And so occasionally on special occasions, I will open it up and offer it to people. I worked with, sexual assault and domestic abuse and family issues for so long. And so I'm opening up to them because I really love them. And I think that they need that little happy spark, so that you can feed the good and just completely really change your life.
The world needs healing. Susan, thank you so much for joining us, and thank you, viewers, for join us again next week. The theme we'll be starting the theme on wellness, and we'll be talking about physical health. My guest will be Nancy White, the Healthy Cells Chick. So join us again next week at the same time. Until then, love yourself, love your families. We're making the world a better place by strengthening families, one family at a time. This is Emmylou Penrod with HealingYourFamilies.com.